The power in social media, and you'll hear this word again and again and again, is authenticity. Authenticity is the thing that drives engagement. And so it's why I say, don't worry about the tripod. Just grab the camera. Don't worry about the flubbed line. Speak in your own voice. Say it like you would as you were talking to a friend, and be very comfortable with being who you are, because the more you are that, the more the content will resonate.
Hello and welcome to The Clear Voice, brought to you by Clear Career Professionals. I'm your host, James Groom. Today we're talking about something that every city, county, and school district deals with, but very few have truly mastered, and that is how to communicate with the public in the modern digital world. Our guest today is Sam Toles. Sam is a former elected council member and longtime media executive at many large corporations, including Vimeo, MGM Studios, and the Bleacher Report, to name a few. As both a public official and a senior leader inside the digital media space, Sam understands the realities of public service and the visibility, scrutiny, and responsibility that comes with communicating on behalf of a community. He pairs that perspective with deep experience building trusted and high-performing social media operations for local government through the company that he founded, Civi Social. Sam is also the author of the Social Media Playbook for City and County Managers and the Social Media Playbook for Local Elected Officials. Sam, welcome to The Clear Voice. Thanks for being with us.
James, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved your content. I've been following the work that you do, and I'm really excited to be here.
We're very glad to have you, and we definitely follow what you post. And in fact, the way that I put together what I wanted to talk about with you was just by going through some of your recent posts and finding all these gems that you're just putting out there that need to be talked about. So we're going to talk about a few of those. But before we do that, let's talk about your background, because you had an amazing private sector career. I want to know what made you want to get into digital media to begin with, why the pivot from the private sector to the public sector, because it probably wasn't about money.
It definitely wasn't that. No, I'm happy to share my story. Kid from Buffalo, New York. For all of those listening who are Bills fans, I suffer with you. Got a degree in political science. I actually, when I was a teenager, wanted to be an airline CEO of all things. I think it just speaks to the value of a four-year education, because I went to a school that had a specific track for aviation management. They had prerequisites, and I just found myself extremely fascinated and gravitating towards political science. Switched schools, switched masters, went back to Buffalo because SUNY Buffalo has one of the best political science programs in the country. Got my degree, and then perhaps like many in your audience was like, what does one do with a political science degree? And I guess the choice was go to Washington or go to Hollywood. And I chose to go to Hollywood and make television and movies. Had the joy of working for all of the major studios. Well, not all of them, but a lot. New Line, Warner Brothers, Paramount. Started my career in marketing and then evolved into content creation. I have multiple Emmy nominations. I even have a project I worked on, got nominated for an Oscar. Don't have any wins. I'm the Susan Lucci of my own life, but really took to media and decided I was going to build a career in media. I also have been fascinated by technology. Midpoint in my private sector career, I had the opportunity to leave Los Angeles and move out to the Palm Springs area. Los Angeles, a council district, is about 2 million people. I think they comprise like 3 or 4 elected congressional districts. So there was never an opportunity to really practice my passion. But when I moved to Cathedral City, California, I was very excited to get into local politics and decided to put my name in the ring and ran for and won a seat on the local city council. I always share this story because it's worth repeating. When you're in the role, if you're a manager or if you're a local government department head or leader, at times you think that the context that you have, everybody has. And remember, I love politics. I studied it. I ran for office. But when I walked in after my election and met the city manager, like, hi, I'm the city manager. And I said, oh, what do you do? True, honest story, right? I had no idea. I didn't even know what a city manager form of government was. I voted in every election. I'm highly engaged in this space. But, for the topic that we're talking about today, I think a lot of the times there's an assumption that people know what it is that you do and why it is that you do it. I think that that's where communications really is so essential, because if someone like me didn't know what a city manager was, I guarantee you 99% of residents probably don't know either. But I fell in love with the work. served my 4-year term, was planning on running for re-election, but had the opportunity to kind of switch tracks in my career. I was given the offer to run the Vimeo platform as their GM. So running a social media platform was completely different than working in traditional television or film. This began this sort of journey into social media. I remember going to Vimeo and thinking, with all my studio credentials and all of my background, I was going to be the person who came in and showed the kids how real media works. I realized almost immediately that the work that they were doing, that the work of social media was going to replace traditional media quickly. And so became really, really focused on becoming that expert. From Vimeo, I went to run digital and new platforms for MGM, and then I was the chief content officer at Bleacher Report. And I've worked with creators that have over 1.5 billion followers. So all that to say, made it fantastic living, but there was something unfulfilled. And one of the things that I'm truly blessed because I made enough money that I could retire. And I thought to myself, what is it that I want to do with these last, 40 years of my life? I'm 51. When I retired, I was 50. And my heart went back to local government. And the question was, well, what does someone with my background, I certainly have no qualifications to be a police officer, a city manager, or a firefighter. What the heck would I do? And then, of course, the light bulb went off. I bet social media is harming local government, the thing I love and care about, and started doing the research. And oh my God, this is like not only harming, but it's the biggest pain point. I thought about it. I believe with my knowledge that I could create a structure and a system that could transform and change the way local government engages on social media. Called my first city manager that I worked with. We had two. My council hired both, and called my city manager, who's now in San Clemente, California. I said, Andy, we haven't talked in a while, but I think I can fix social media for you. And he said, Sam, that's impossible. No one can fix social media. I said, let me come out to San Clemente and just test it. You can let me guinea pig on your staff. And if you do that, I won't charge you anything, but I just think this will work. We did it. The results were absolutely transformative. And that began this new journey, which is to bring that knowledge and bring that system to school boards, cities, towns, villages, counties, all local governments across the country. And we've been in 17 states with 22 clients in just over 19 months.
When you said that traditional media is quickly being supplanted by this new media, I read a statistic the other day that said only 15% of people trust the traditional news media. That probably gives, especially local governments, some opportunities if they get in there and they shape their narrative correctly and do some of the things that you probably promote in your program.
I think trust is such a huge topic, right? We know that the federal government, the state government are really at like nadir, the low point in trust. This is now true of news media, traditional news media as well, to your point. What's fascinating is when we look at the data, local government is the most trusted organization among everything measured, right? That trust has eroded somewhat, but typically what we see is somewhere between 70 and 90% of people who live in their community trust their local government. Doesn't feel that way because of what I call the STPs, right? This STPs are the same 3, 10, 20 people who clog up the Facebook community groups, who are constantly banging away and making negative commentary on your posts, who are demoralizing your staff, who are making the experience feel like you're an upside down land, because the data tells us that people do actually trust their local government. But the feeling and the communication, and for all of you who are in management, I can tell you, the electeds are sensitive souls. I was one, and I'm sure all of yours are as well. We see this, and we're like, oh my God, the world's on fire. Everybody hates us. Do something. Manager, please do something. The perception's wrong, right? But the communication has changed, and the reality is you're not talking to anyone but the STPs. So you're in this sort of doom loop where the community groups and the STPs are always on the attack, and you're always on the response. You're always defensive. You're always responding. You're spending money. It's crazy. Stop, right? Back when I was a kid, there was this lady named Susan Powder who had hair kind of like mine. I'm bald, by the way, for those listening on audio. And she would scream in her infomercials, "Stop the insanity!" And she was selling some kind of weight loss program or something. But that's what I want to say to everyone in local government. Stop the insanity. Do not let social media run your life. It's time to do something different.
I think most of the people that I know in local government know somebody, if it wasn't them, that have left a job prematurely because of either what gets posted on social media or a lot of times the reaction of their bosses to that or the elected officials. You talked about trust being very important. A couple of your posts from the recent days have been about authenticity and communication. You cited the McDonald's CEO burger video, and also Canva released a template for Women's Day, so you could just put up your own post, which I'm sure you believe that we should be posting about Women's Day. I think the catch was it can't just be a template cookie cutter thing that everybody is using to show that, because it can't be performative. So how important is authenticity in social media for local government?
Yeah, I want to ask your audience a question for them to put in their minds. When you go to your mailbox, right, and I don't know how in 2026 our mailbox for every day seems to be stuffed with things, credit card offers, circulars, flyers. My realtor who sold me this house 4 years ago still sends me a piece of mail every other week. I don't know why, but he does. When you go through that pile of mail, what do you do when you see a handwritten letter? What feeling do you get? Do you go right to the flyers? Is that where your interest is? Or do those flyers go right into the recycling bin? And this is my point when it comes to authentic parasocial content creation. You really are needing to use these platforms as if you were writing a handwritten letter to your constituents. Fancy flyer, no matter how much time your graphic designer spends making it look perfect and pretty and your logo and your colors and all the things, and it says, to all of our, female employees, we want to celebrate Women's Day. We appreciate your work. You're awesome. That's the intent behind what you're doing is right. But the way it's received is performative, right? You're just placing yet another piece of junk into the social ecosystem. And unlike your mailbox, there are over 5 billion social media posts every single day. It's like your mailbox, but on like a kind of steroids that we don't want to think about. So dropping something impersonal, inauthentic, that's pretty and logo-y may have seemed like a good idea many years ago, but it doesn't have the same impact. Where we know, and there's a lot of research and studies around this, is people form parasocial relationships with creators that they follow. When I say creators, some people call them influencers. I hate that term because if you've worked with anyone who actually is a creative on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, they think of themselves like filmmakers, like they're making content for an audience. They're not trying to make money. Imagine calling Tom Cruise an influencer, right? He gets paid to do what he does. He gets marketing dollars, but that's not the primary reason for his career. These are creative people. And when you work with creators and you look at the research, what you will find is that their audience on social media does something really different than how people traditionally have interacted with sort of traditional celebrities. In my career at MGM, I got to take celebrities out for dinner, whether that's Sylvester Stallone or Paul Abdul or whomever, right? And you go to the restaurant and you're having a business dinner with these very famous people. And once in a while, someone's going to sheepishly come to the table and say, oh, Miss Abdul, could I trouble you for an autograph? And it's really kind of like they know that there's a wall between them and that celebrity. Now, I contrast this with the time, and you mentioned my video from the McDonald's thing. I was working with Carl Jacobs, who is on the Mr. Beast team. I posted one of the videos that Carl and I did back in the day, which we were doing to make fun of McDonald's and the Grimace Shake. When I took Carl to Disneyland, kids would come up and hug him. Literally, they would run up. And when I say kids, like 15, 16-year-old people would come up and run up and hug him. He was their friend. They'd never met before. But the relationship that Carl had developed with his audience was parasocial. It was personal. The nature of social media content today is about developing a personal relationship between the people on your staff and the community that they serve. And when we think about this in the simplest of terms, the people in any organization are neighbors serving neighbors, right? Your entire purpose and essence is to help your fellow neighbors in the community that you live have a better community as a whole. That is your goal. Your why is so, so important. When we see that work, and we see just not the manager in a stilted video like the McDonald's video where it's like, this product is good. This policy is important, right? Like, pay attention to my policy. We are passing this ordinance for your own good. That kind of content does not resonate. It is not parasocial. It's produced. But if we see a police officer, a firefighter, a parks worker, a lifeguard, just doing the work, neighbors serving neighbors, and we see that consistently, and that content is video. And it's not video that opens with a dramatic drone shot and a big logo opening. It's just, hey, I'm Officer so-and-so, and notice that there was some trash in the park. I'm just going to do a quick cleanup here, right? Something simple, something human, personal, that is like making a handwritten letter to your constituents. That is the content that they will see. It is the content that they will share, and it is how they become supporters and advocates as opposed to the folks we see in the community groups.
So your program doesn't require 20 people working on a high budget film. You can literally just do this just like a lot of the content creators. They're using a selfie camera to create a video, or maybe there's one other person filming them while they're doing whatever they're doing. This is very budget friendly if you're adopting a system like you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, here's what the process entails. What I do when I work with a client, and my work is one time, one fee. My belief is if you do the Civi Social program, you should have complete self-sufficiency going forward, and you don't need to hire anyone. I've worked with communities that have 17 members of full-time staff or 20 members of full-time staff, right? Small, and these are, 10,000, 20,000 resident places. They just are really budget constrained. And for some of you listening, I know you know the feeling, right? That we just don't have the time. We don't have the resources. We don't have the people. I can't afford to hire professional social media people or communicators. By the way, if you're hiring a professional social media person that actually knows what they're doing, you definitely can't afford it because those kids are, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Trust me, I've hired many of them in my career. What you can do, and what we do is we do a survey of all of the members of staff, and whether that's 15 or 150, or in some counties I've worked with, 2,000 people. We send out a survey. The manager says, hey, please take this brief 5-minute survey. But what that survey is doing is it's feeding me information that I can put through a rubric to identify who are the people in the team, on the team, who in their personal time enjoy making social content, are engaging on platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, who find a passion in doing this work. And what we do with those folks is we then inspire them to become what I call a creator squad. Within the organization, maybe that's 5 people, maybe that's 8, maybe that's 15. But there's a group of folks that we circle up and say, we're going to give you some light training. We're going to show you what this looks like in the context of local government, telling your own story, right? You might be in your off time, a baking influencer or a beauty creator or whatever you want, or maybe you just like to take pictures of gardens or videos of gardens that you visit or whatever it is. They're doing something on social media, or they're actively engaged in viewing social media. But now we're going to invite them to basically tell the story of their work. So that public works worker who fills potholes gets the opportunity to pull out his camera and say, whoa, this pothole is a doozy. Let's see if we can fix it. How many times have you seen on social media before and after, right? Like really, oh man, can they fix that? And then boop, it's fixed. And then we see how it's fixed. And it's fascinating. It's interesting content. It's engaging. But now we have that person who, in addition to filling the pothole, will take 5 minutes of their time to capture it, not as a picture, but as a video. And then that video will be sent to whomever is managing communications to program it against the strategy that we developed together, right? I want the PIOs listening and the comms people to think of themselves as if they sat in my seat at Bleacher Report. I want you guys to be strategists. I don't want you to be like the one-man band that has a kazoo and a drum stuck to your back that's responsible for making all this stuff, and it's overwhelming and it's not having impact. I want you to be able to step back, look at the platforms, and have a group of people that are contributing. And your job is to protect the organization. So if somebody makes a video that's not exactly on point or doesn't align with the organization, you can gently say, hey, we're not going to publish that video. Great effort. Love this. I think people might misinterpret what you're doing. So we're going to take a step back, but encourage them to continue to make stuff. They become the strategy, and they become the strategists that connect. And by doing this, you're not just talking to Facebook. You're building an ecosystem that talks to the actual community, because in most cities, the average age of a suburb resident in the United States is 38. Guess what, folks? A 38-year-old is not Repeat, not on Facebook.
I like your pothole example because I found a lot of times people were upset because we weren't doing anything in local government. But the reality is the work's getting done. We're just not showing it off. And a couple of minutes of setup of a video camera, cheap tripod with a phone could basically give you that content and would remind people that we're actually out there doing whatever the work is, potholes or cutting grass or, whatever it is.
You don't even need the tripod. Just hold it by hand. I always say the video, the more framed and professional looking the video is, the less parasocial connection you will make with it. Like, creators have learned that it's an invitation almost into their lives, not a, this is your government, we have good news for you kind of thing.
When you're starting it, you worried about how it has to be perfect, but you're probably 100% right that it's the imperfections that make it seem like it's made by a human being who's out here doing other things. And if you overproduce it, first of all, the criticism is going to be you spent, $1,000 producing this documentary looking video for just a social post instead of just filming it real quickly and putting it up for people.
100%.
Well, before we move on from McDonald's, I just have a question. I mean, I've watched this and I've read what you say. I don't disagree with it. But I just can't believe that this wasn't almost done on purpose to look out of touch. I mean, he's getting a lot of play on it, and they say no media is bad media, right? I guess is what they say. So, do you think it was just that big of a fumble, or at some point in time they were like, "We'll make it look like this so it gets the reach that we want"?
So it's a happy accident. I love the two examples, both this recent CEO video and the Grimace Shake, because they very clearly, I think, delineate the difference between how marketers think about content and how social media actually works in the real world, right? So the Grimace Shake, which I referenced before, was a few years ago, McDonald's issued this purple grapey flavored shake to honor Grimace's birthday. I don't know why this happened, but a bunch of creators started drinking the shake and then cutting to a scene of them being dead. So the implication is if you drink this McDonald's product, it will kill you. Not exactly something a marketer would ever dream up. However, it really accelerated sales. It made the Grimace Shake a viral phenomenon, which of course is the end goal of McDonald's marketing team, is to make something exciting. But they had nothing to do with it. McDonald's was a happy casualty or happy beneficiary of the creator ecosystem doing its wacky, wild, and wonderful thing. This video with the CEO, I would love if a marketer was clever enough to manufacture that and it comes out somehow that that's the case and someone can verify it and prove it, more power. One thing I just want to go back to what we were just talking about. The power in social media, and you'll hear this word again and again and again, is authenticity. Authenticity is the thing that drives engagement. And so it's why I say, don't worry about the tripod. Just grab the camera. Just don't worry about the flubbed line. Just speak in your own voice. Say it like you would as you were talking to a friend, and be very comfortable with being who you are, because the more you are that, the more the content will resonate. And I think that this was as authentic as it gets. This guy was as packaged up and weird. I think that's who he is. I don't think he doesn't like the Archburger. I don't think he eats a lot of McDonald's. In fact, I heard one of his former executive chefs say that in a meeting, he got up and stood up in front of the team and they asked, like, what do you like to eat? And he goes, I eat a lot of fish. Which it's not not a fillet of fish, just fish in general. Like, I don't think this guy eats a lot of McDonald's. And that's fine. Like, being a good CEO doesn't mean you have to eat the product. See, I use the word product. How funny. But in any case, it doesn't mean that you don't, but like who he is stilted and weird. And something about that stilted and weird aspect of him that was captured as he was trying to enthusiastically recommend that people try the Archburger is what resonated. It kind of in a backdoor kind of way, but it got people's attention because it was so antithetical to the slickly produced spot, right? Again, yes, I don't think it was the intention, but the benefit to the organization is it got more attention than probably $100 million worth of marketing would have bought McDonald's. Right? More genuine interest in a new product launch than whatever they could have done with flyers and television and radio. Like this became a cultural thing. I have to be honest. I'm curious to try the Archburger. I didn't even know the Archburger was a thing until this whole phenomenon happened. And it all is because of this odd, authentic moment that captured people in a unique way.
So we'll just have to look for the sales.
Guarantee. Let's look at the next quarterly. I guarantee this is a hit.
Well, you teased the next segment that I want to talk about. You said millennials are not on Facebook for the most part. 30-ish year old people are not on Facebook. And I know that's true. Where are these people? Where do we connect with them? And can we take our Facebook content that, if it is working on Facebook, can we just move it to the next platform over?
Yeah. You're touching on my probably like if you hit my funny bone, that last statement you made would probably have a less of an impact. I hear so many communities that I talk to and they say, well, we're on Instagram, just nobody's looking at it. And I'm like, no, you're on Facebook and you're cross-posting to Instagram. That's a different thing, right? Having a bunch of flyers on Instagram is the antithesis of a platform that was originally designed to showcase unique and compelling photography and became one of the top video sharing platforms in the world based on, this creator explosion that we've seen. So your flyers on Instagram does not mean you're on Instagram. It just means you have an Instagram account that you're incorrectly using. I did a little bit of a shock tease in one of my LinkedIn posts, and I said, fully half of the Fox News audience will not vote in the 2032 election. Half of them will not vote. Fox News audience, 2032. That's not the next election, which is 2028, but that's the following. It's 2 elections away, 2 presidential cycles from now. Half the Fox News audience won't vote. And people scratch their head and say, that's not possible. Is that because the policies? I'm like, no, it's just math, folks. The average viewer of Fox News is 69 years old. The average cable subscription holder, somebody who actually has a cable package that they pay their cable company to bring channels into their home, is 64. It's not that Fox News is particularly old. They're a little older than the mean, but they're not that far off. Traditional media is dying, literally dying. And when we think about social media, it's not as if it stays in stasis, right? When Facebook launched, and I'm old enough to remember the launch, you had to have an .edu account, and I was not a college student. I was a little older, so I couldn't get on Facebook. I was on MySpace. MySpace doesn't exist anymore. It aged out. Facebook was, back in 2004, the cool kids' place to hang out, right? Facebook was, for a period of time, the most culturally relevant platform in the world. However, Facebook was invented before the mobile phone. You remember, not before the mobile phone, but before the iPhone, before the smartphone, Facebook exists. It was built for computers. It was built for a keyboard. Hence the comments, folks. The comments are by design because it was built for a keyboard. The reality is, when we look at the data about Facebook, the most active audience on Facebook is 55 plus. 55 plus. When we look at the demographics of your community, I guarantee you, there have been communities that have reached out and I'm like, your community is 55 plus, so Facebook is probably where you need to live. Those communities that are more representative of the norm, the mean, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok. And I always tell people, yes, there is a platform that was built right alongside Facebook that does actually talk to all generations equally, but it is not Facebook. It is actually YouTube. YouTube has as much engagement with Gen A as it does with boomers and everything in between. So if you really want a one-stop shop to tell your story, YouTube is that platform that is cross-generational. However, getting reach on YouTube is challenging, and I encourage people to think about using all of the platforms. It doesn't mean abandoning Facebook, but it means de-emphasizing Facebook is the only way that you communicate. I hear from folks all the time, and since you're in the recruiting business, I'm sure you do too. We cannot get young people to sign up to the police academy or to the fire academy or to join one of our entry-level roles. Why? Because you're posting flyers on Facebook or Instagram. That's not inspiring to a 20-something or a 30-something who's thinking about career choice, right? You have to communicate on the channels in the language that they communicate on. And also, there's a misnomer that old people don't use platforms like TikTok or Instagram. That isn't true. They don't use them as frequently, but what they do, like my mother's 80, she sends me TikTok videos every day. It's not because I worked in social media. I don't think my mother actually knows what I do or what I did because she just stopped tracking my career after I left the studios. She was really fascinated by my time at Warner Brothers, and then she lost interest when I was doing other things. But she loves the TikTok. She sends me dog videos and funny, silly things all the time. It's not just young people using these platforms. Facebook and X, because of the way that they were architected, and that architecture is around very negative algorithmic drivers, a lot of people, young, middle-aged, and old, have just said enough. We cannot deal with the negativity, and they have left, and they're not coming back. I'll share one thing, because I did my mailbox thing. So I'm going to do another mental exercise for your audience. What I do with my clients when I sit down the first day with all the department heads and the city manager, as I say, I'm going to give you a green sticky note and a red sticky note. And I physically give them the sticky notes. I said, in your personal life, not in work, don't think about work, but just how you engage personally. If you are on social media, I want you on the red sticky note to write down the name of a platform that makes you feel tense, that makes you feel nervous, that makes you feel discomfort, unease. And then on the green sticky note, I want you to write down a platform where you go to relax, where you find humor, where you learn things that's interesting to you. And I collect all of these sticky notes, and then I plot them on a graph. And think of the graph as there are 3 boxes at the top and there are 3 boxes at the bottom. 3 boxes at the top are Facebook, X/Twitter, and Nextdoor. And on the bottom, we have YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Now, I imagine, if you're thinking about this, that on the whole top row, especially in Facebook land, is literally like chock full of red sticky notes. And on the bottom, we are chock full of green. And so then I asked them the question, is social media all bad, or is all social media bad? And then I asked them the question, and where are you putting your focus? And then I asked them the question, are you surprised that things are negative?
I was so surprised when we started this podcast that a lot of our listens come from YouTube, even though it's currently audio only. I mean, we're going to probably move to video at some point in time, but for an audio only podcast, it was very shocking to me that 50 or 60% of our listens come from YouTube, and most of our short content has blown up more on YouTube shorts than anywhere else that we're putting it. And I never really connected it to what you're saying about it being not as negative of a platform. And you're right. Like I love going to TikTok. I don't do Instagram so much, but that's just because I'm on TikTok and it's similar to me. And then, I like YouTube for different things, but I rarely get off of TikTok upset about something.
Well, that's the thing. And there's actually an architectural reason to that. So TikTok is the most modern algorithm of all the platforms. Remember, I said 5+ billion posts, right? When I was at Vimeo, we had 250 million active monthly users, which meant individuals who came to Vimeo, 250 million of them. And we got about 8 to 10 million video uploads in that same period, right? In a month. I got to figure out how to take those 8 to 10 million videos plus the hundreds of millions of videos that had previously been loaded and surface them to the right people that are that 250 million users, right? And that is an algorithm. We have to figure out how to bring the right content to the right person. The way the original older algorithms and the architecture behind Facebook is built is by cohort, meaning if you have an interest, and I mentioned I'm a Bills fan, right? So there are a lot of Bills fans. We get shown a lot of Bills content because we're in the Bills tribe. We're in the Bills mafia. But think about the 2 biggest tribes, the red tribe and the blue tribe, the 2 biggest tribes in our little lovely ecosystem. The red tribe gets very pent up because the more salacious, the more engaging, the more kind of intense the content is, the more they agitate. And the same thing as the blue tribe. Oh my God, did you see what Trump did today? Da, 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 da. And then they get agitated, right? The actual architecture of the algorithm on Facebook is designed for conflict. It was not done intentionally. The intent of the algorithm was to connect content to interested people, but the way that it was built created the system that you are now suffering in today. And you mentioned you like TikTok. I too like TikTok. TikTok is built on an algorithm that is dubbed collisionless embedding. And the key is the collisionless part. What TikTok is doing is it is not looking at you and trying to compare you to other people. It is saying, what does James specifically like? What is it that he finds interesting? Where does he linger on a video? And then it scans. Because we now have this amazing technology called artificial intelligence, we are able to, at much more rapid pace, figure out what you like and give you exactly that. typically, most people, believe it or not, for all of your listeners who probably think all social media is just a toxic swamp, most people do not want to be peppered with negative. Their heart rate goes up when they see it, but they don't want to be peppered with it. So there are actually platforms that are designed to just sort of guide you through a process. And if you're a TikTok user, you'll sit there sometimes for 3 hours and go, how the hell did I spend 3 hours on this platform? But that 3 hours is content that is just delighting you in a way that connects with you. Again, that's why that bottom sector is all green, because people are experiencing positive content. Everybody in local government is social media is the devil. I'm turning off my comments. I'm turning off my comments. Get off of Facebook. Don't get off of it completely, but de-emphasize it. Turning off your comments is not solving the problem. They're going over to the community group. They're just going to have the conversation elsewhere, and it's going to agitate your elected officials just the same. Like, you are band-aiding a problem as opposed to actually thinking about how to solve it. So there is a way to solve it. My clients report back to me that in 6 months after they worked with me, negativity drops by 80%. I had a client, they had a big STP problem. They had 30 STPs that were constantly agitating. And when I went and visited them 7 months later, because I was in a nearby community that was working with me, and I said, let's go out to lunch. I want to check in. I said, how are things going? He goes, I don't have an STP problem. I have an SOP problem. I said, I've never heard of an SOP. He goes, we're down to one person. Everyone else went away, and we're down to one person. This is not because I have a magic wand, folks. This is the magic of your own team. When people see neighbors serving neighbors in authentic, real video content, it's very easy to attack your policy. It's very easy to attack a personality-less flyer. It's very easy to attack the logo, and it's very easy to attack City Hall. A police officer, a parks worker, a public works person, even a code enforcement officer, doing their work on behalf of the community, real people with real names doing real work, that's really hard to attack, because guess what? Other neighbors go, cut it out. I know Mary. I know Jane. I know Jim. They're good people. I see them every day. I feel like they're friends of mine. Stop with whatever this nonsense is, this conspiratorial crap does not align with my understanding of the local government as told through the stories of neighbors serving neighbors.
Yeah, those community groups can be very detrimental for people. What advice, other than just reconfiguring how they're putting their social media up, what other advice do you have for people dealing with those same 10 people or 30 people in those groups?
I love that. I love this question. I'm actually going to be talking about this at ICMA Orlando. So if you folks are in Orlando, I'll also be talking about it in Philly, and I'm sure I'll talk about it at the national conference when I'm doing my presentations. But I'll give you a preview here on this show, which is I've been doing some deep research on behavior on social media, because obviously this is the field that I'm in. And I want to look at and try to validate some of the themes that I know are true behind how sort of 2.0 social media, mobile first social media operates and connects with people than social media 1.0, which is your Facebook and your X and the sort of original platforms. And what's interesting is the term I've come to describe this new phenomenon that I'm building and seeing and researching is coining a phrase that Nixon used, which is the silent majority. The community groups are a closed ecosystem, handful or sometimes 100 or sometimes 200 or whatever it is, whatever the number is, of people who belong to the group. And there's usually within that group 20, 10 people who are highly agitated and constantly active. But you're really talking, again, to a closed ecosystem. It's just highly visible, right? We see the community groups. We see the comments, the reactions, the likes, all of the stuff, the engagement is all visible because it's a closed ecosystem that we can see. Now, let's turn to what my number one advice is for anyone in local government, which is stop thinking about the comments as the reason behind what you do and start thinking about the shares. Because shares are the critical difference between OG platforms and new platforms. When you're on a mobile phone and you're scrolling TikTok or you're scrolling Instagram, or even if you're scrolling Reels on Facebook, if you stop and see something that compels you, that's interesting, your first intent is not to go make a comment. Your first intent is going to be, this is something someone else should see. I'm going to share it. Like my mom sharing those TikTok videos with me. Now, younger people typically will do that within the ecosystem. They will share it via DM, but sometimes you can share it via text message. The shares are happening, and what's interesting is once it's shared, it can be shared from the person who received it again and again and again. And the platform is, once it's sort of escaped velocity, we don't have full visibility. If someone's texting someone else a link to a video, that's not counting as a share. But the fact that it was shared once may mean that it's reached 20, 30, 50, 100 people that we don't even see on the platform analytics, right? We just are seeing view count and impressions, which are also helpful. But the point of this is, if you think about that closed community group, in the simplest of terms, they're all agitating amongst each other, visible to each other, but no one else is really seeing it. It's just, a lot of times these groups are even locked. You can't get in. We, of course, in local government find our ways to create a fake profile and get our way in so we can get, God, we got to see what's happening in the community group, right? But it's all closed. When you have something, when you're building social media on a share-based philosophy, think of it as like an ever-expanding network. All of a sudden, you have all these tentacles of touch points of people who've shared, reshared, shared again, and you're building a invisible but very powerful point of connection. And so this is why a lot of my clients will always, in a few months, come and say, I'm so shocked at what's happening. People are coming up to us in the store and saying, I love what you're doing on TikTok. I love that new initiative. I love that. Like, where are they seeing this? And I'm like, they're seeing it through the shares. They're seeing it from a neighbor. And think about, again, going back to that mailbox analogy. If your neighbor came and walked across the street and handed you a written letter, how powerful is that connection? Well, that's the digital equivalent of a share, right? It's somebody saying, this is important enough for you to know, and I think it's good. It is the way that we need to think about social media going forward, A, because it creates positive velocity, but more importantly, it helps really bind your organization to the people that you serve in a real human way. When you're feeling, sad and lonely in the Facebook community group, I want you to visualize in your mind like an invisible string of digital ones and zeros zooming around the universe with your wonderful content connecting with hundreds of thousands, in your case, in your community, depending on how big it is, maybe it's 100,000, maybe it's 10,000, maybe 50, but it's like connecting and bouncing around. Maybe it's even escaping the ecosystem. And the last point I will share is a story, because I love a good story. One of my earliest clients sent me a note, their ACM sent me a note and said, you wouldn't believe this story. And the story was an email that the code enforcement officer sent to his assistant manager, sharing the value of social media. So this code team does really clever, fun work. And he was taking his girlfriend out a few months after we had left that city to the movies. And he made the mistake of wearing his polo that said, name of city and code enforcement. And so as he walked into the movie theater and handed the ticket to the young man who was standing there, the guy said, you work in code enforcement. And now my poor code guy is thinking, oh, this guy's going to hit me or he's getting an argument with me. I probably did something. And the next words out of his mouth were, I love what you guys are doing. How can I become a code enforcement officer? I see your TikToks all the time. You guys are so cool. That's code enforcement, folks. And that's a perfect example of that invisible line stretching out to this young man at the movie theater who was scrolling TikTok, landed on these code videos, and inspired him to consider a new career in code. And how many of you struggle to find code people? That's what we're talking about here.
It's amazing, that connection part. And, you said earlier that sometimes your online community will come to your defense. And at least with Facebook, I've never been prouder when our community came to our defense. And sometimes it was simple things like people mad about potholes on one of the roadways that's state maintained and they're blaming the city for it. And somebody just pointing out that, hey, this is not the city's problem.
I have a great story about that. I have a very funny story, very quick. So I was in the city here in Florida. And I said, what's your number one problem? They said, potholes. I said, well, are you struggling with that? And like, no, we fix our potholes. It's the state road and the county roads, which happen to be the main thoroughfares, and they're a mess. And people are really annoyed with us. And we don't know how to fix it. We don't know how to tell people this. I said, make a game show. I said, what do you mean? I said, let's make a game show. We'll call it Whose Pothole Is It Anyway? And we'll find 3 members of staff who have nothing to do with public works, who are just like normal people in this city. the person who's in HR, the person who's in parks, and, I can't remember the third person, but like people who wouldn't actually know the answer to these questions, let's give them 3 cards: the logo of the city, the logo of the state, and or FDOT, and the logo of Polk County. I'll play host. We'll start the video off in council chambers. We'll have the ACM come up to the podium and say, there's a pothole. Who's going to fix it? And point the finger as if they were coming to the commission meeting, right? And then all of us are going to scream, whose pothole is it anyway? Put some fun game show music under it. I will explain the premise of the show, which is we're going to figure out whose pothole, and then they would raise their cards, and of course they'd get some right and some wrong, and it makes it entertaining, but it connects a concept to people in a way that putting a flyer up that says, here's a list of roads that we don't maintain, and these are the ones that we like. No one's going to see it. No one's going to read it. But if you create something entertaining and engaging and fun, people are going to be like, I'm sharing that video because this is A, fun, and B, who the heck knew that was the thing?
Where can we go watch this? Is it still posted?
I will find the link for you and I'll send it to you. Yeah, it may still be up. I don't know if it was shared as a story or a reel, but if it's still up, I'll share it. I have a copy of the video as well. It was magical. And this was just me teaching them how to make social media. I was like it's part of my module is like, let's make a piece of content today that we takes. And again, my premise in all of this is this should not take hours and hours. How can we as a group brainstorm an idea? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Potholes. What's the issue behind potholes? Responsibility, responsible agency. How do we tell that story? Game show. Let's actually make it. And all of that was done in probably 25 minutes from start to finish. And then I showed them how to edit it. And I used a tool called CapCut, which for your audience, if you're on social media, CapCut is literally social media in a box. Go check it out, grab it. None of this is hard. It just requires intent. And I feel so often that among management department heads, the intent has stopped that we just need to ignore it, right? We need to turn off the comments. We need to stop paying attention to it. Like, sorry guys, that's not an acceptable answer. And I'm not saying that as a vendor trying to sell you anything. I'm saying that as a human being that lives in a city that expects my local government to communicate with me. There isn't local news. There isn't radio talking about local issues. Like, this is your responsibility now. Just putting up drab stuff on Facebook or policy papers and expecting people to read them and appreciate them is not realistic. And being upset that people are upset on Facebook is not an excuse. You have to actually do this work. Whether you do it with me or you do it on your own, but you have to actually do this work. Communications is that important.
It's a little ironic to me that social media that is ruled by trends and short-term concepts, you really have to adopt a long-term mindset much beyond probably your tenure at the city to do it right.
100%.
I'm going to end with talking about some of those places that does social media right. I don't know if you've got some examples. I know one of my favorite police departments to look at is South Lake DPS in Texas. They do a good job of adding humor in there, but not like hitting that cringe button. They put out a lot of good information. Now, I don't know if they're on other platforms and they're not video heavy, so they may not meet your cut, but from what I can tell, like they really put some effort into it, but it's not overly produced most of the time. For police departments, humanizing the badge is one of those things that you absolutely have to do. A little bit of humor does it, but you can have humor that is distasteful or cringeworthy if you're not paying attention.
Yep. Police departments and everybody on social media has to have, again, a level of strategy and thoughtfulness around how will this be received, but also understand that no one is going to always be perfect all the time. That expectation of like, we will never make a post that's not going to go sideways, it's not realistic. You have to build this with the knowledge that sometimes you're going to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. It's going to go wrong. And that's true whether you're doing a modern, effective social media strategy or you're doing an old school kind of, flyer bait. Like you're going to hit a nerve at some point. It's part of the game. But most importantly, the thing that protects you when you do something wrong, which will always happen, is if people understand your intent. Intent is the inoculation from error in this medium. What that means is if you've built a volume and people have built a parasocial relationship and people understand the mission of your organization is truly neighbors serving neighbors, and someone, for whatever reason, posts something that goes sideways, Your audience is going to give you the benefit of the doubt because they're going to say, you know what? They made a mistake. You're going to come out. You're going to apologize for it. You're going to be like, we screwed up, man. Going back to my LinkedIn thing, the CMO of McDonald's, after the Grimace Shake thing blew up, he leaned in. He's like, okay, not exactly what I'd hoped for with Grimace, but I'm going to do a funny video of me dying in the trunk of my car. It's very good, very funny, right? So you're going to come in, you're going to correct the error, but where the flame retardant is in your intent. If people don't see or know that your intent is positive, that you are truly, genuinely people that live in the community to serve the community that they live in, and your neighbors serving neighbors, and they see you as the government, what didn't Ronald Reagan say? The government is here to help or something like that, right? Like, this is not what people want. This is not developing the right intent. The intent, you know it. Everybody that works inside local government knows your intent. The problem is your community doesn't necessarily, because of the way you communicate. So if the intent is there, it is like a flame retardant on those moments that burn. Because if you're not communicating intent, all you are is a tinder bush waiting for one spark to light the damn place on fire. And that, I feel like, is the most of local government. Now, you asked a specific question and I talked too much, so I'm going to give you an answer. I would love to call out my clients because I am so frickin' proud of the people that worked with me. I'll just say go to civvysocial.com. There's a lot of logos in there. And if you want to follow any one of my clients, they all do really, really fun work. Some of them are brand new, like, Paris, Texas just finished a couple weeks ago. So they're probably not there yet, but there's some good stuff in that mix. An agency that's not a client of mine that I think is doing genius work is Lee County Sheriffs in Florida, Lee County in Florida. They are on TikTok, and oh my gosh, they do it brilliantly. Their sheriff leans in. He is active, but it's his whole team. It's a mixture of fun. It's a mixture of, there was a video that I show in my training that was done on Veterans Day of them honoring a man's son who had lost in combat, that I cannot watch the video without crying. I've watched the video 50 times. I've cried every single time I've watched that video. It is so emotional. It is so genius. The intent was not to make now we're going to pull on the heartstrings for Veterans Day. No, they happened to be in a moment where they saw a man during their Veterans Day parade holding a picture of his fallen son, and 3 of the officers jumped off the float to salute him, to talk to him, to hug him, and someone had the presence of mind to capture that. The audio's a little weird, everything, but it's a genius piece of content because it's like, we see you, we honor you, we appreciate you, neighbors serving neighbors, we're here by your side. Like, it's just brilliant. So you can have the Lee County Sheriff doing a rap battle dance with like a 10-year-old kid, and then you can have that video, and it's the right mix, and it truly humanizes that organization. So Lee County Sheriffs in Florida, you get my vote for an account to follow. Hopefully get some new followers based on this video.
I'll definitely check them out. Sam, it's been a great time with you. Probably need to do part 2.
We should do part 2. I'm always up to talk. As you can tell, I never shut up.
We'll go ahead and plan on that. Can you tell people how to get the books and who they're for and what they can get out of the books, and then also how to connect with you for the services you provide through Civvy Social?
I love it. Yes. So the books, there are 2, as you mentioned at the top of the show. The social media playbook for city and county managers. And the good news is, if you are city manager, county manager, school board lead administrator, someone who oversees a local government organization, that book is yours free. All you have to do is go on the website, www.civvysocial, C-I-V-I, not city, S-I-T-Y, C-I-V-I social, S-O-C-I-A-L.com, civvysocial.com, and click Playbook at the top right-hand side of the screen and fill out a form. I do not bother people. I just send the book. I'm not going to send an endless series of like, hey, want to talk, blah, blah, blah. Because to be honest, we have more demand for our services than I can keep up with. The book is genuinely yours for free. And if we work together, that would be awesome. The social media playbook for elected officials, as well as the social media playbook for city and county managers, are both available on Amazon.com. So you can look them up there and buy them. They're great because I wrote them. No, I'm kidding. I'd say the local elected book is a little bit more storytelling because I was a local elected official. I've never been a city manager. So the manager book is a tad bit more dry. It's more practical advice, tips, tricks, and sort of landscape. And then all of that is in the elected book, but I use parables from my own election and things that I encountered as a council member and what I've seen in social media to sort of weave through. Both are great books. Check them out on Amazon.
That's great. And so Civi Social, that'll give them all the services and be able to connect you as well.
Yep. There's a contact form. There's a ton of videos from people who've worked with me talking about amazing stuff. My whole thing is when I meet with a prospective client, I give them a flyer. It says, don't talk to us. Talk to someone who's worked with us and then talk to us. And it really does help because what we do is one of a kind. There's no one that does this program or anything like it in local government. And speaking with a manager who's gone through it and experienced it is a really good way to contextualize what you're buying and what you get. And again, highly affordable. I do this as a passion. The only reason I charge a fee is because I want my clients to take the work seriously. If you're going to spend a week of my time, you need to embrace this philosophy and you need to take it seriously. So it's affordable for all size organizations. And I don't charge based on if you're, 1 million people or you're 10,000 people, because I want this mission to spread to the world. So please give me a buzz on the website. I'd love to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate your time today. And before we call it a day, do you have any advice, whether it be about social media or just life in general in these crazy times, going out to city managers and other executives in cities or schools that you can pass on that'll help them in their day-to-day struggles?
I do. It's going to be super simple. I want you to ask your spouse, your best friend, people who know you really well, not the work you, not the you that you present, but who you really are as a person, the people that love you. I want you to ask them to give you the 5 reasons that they value you, that they love you, that they care about you. I want you to write those down. And they might be different from person to person, but you'll get some consistent themes. It is these things that are the core of your communication. If you communicate these things, the things that people that know you best and care about you most see reflected in their relationship with you, that is the key to successful communication. Because when you put on a face, and I do it all the time, I come from media, for goodness sake. So I would make a terrible creator influencer because I'm too packaged and I'm too polished and it's hard for me to beat it out of me. But if you are able to think about the reasons people care about you, really care about you, what they see in you, what they see reflected in you, and if you can communicate those qualities about yourself and talk about those things in real and honest ways, guaranteed no one is going to come attack you, be mean to you, because the authentic you is the most powerful weapon that you have at your disposal.
Sam, thank you. We appreciate that. And we appreciate your time. To the listeners, thank you for joining us. And we appreciate what you do in your communities day in and day out. Please like us and give us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. And also check out Clear Career Professionals website and check us out on LinkedIn for the latest career opportunities. And we will catch you next time.